Hey everyone, if you're listening to this to fall asleep, get cozy and relax. Today, I'll share the story A Day in the Life of a Qin Dynasty farmer, and why you couldn't survive a single day as one. But before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Alright, let's dive in. You wake up to the sound of a rooster crowing, not because it loves you or even knows your name, but because that's just what roosters do. It's early morning in the year 215 BCE, and you are a peasant farmer living in the newly unified Qin Empire, the first of its kind in Chinese history. The sky outside is still dark blue, like ink spilled over rice paper, and the cold bites through your thin hemp blanket. There's no coffee here, no alarm clock either, just the rhythm of the sun, the seasons, and the unrelenting demands of the state. Your house is small, 2 rooms made of packed earth and wood, with a roof of thatch that leaks when it rains and lets in wind when it doesn't. You share this space with your wife, 2 children, and, if you're lucky, a chicken or 2 that roost near the hearth. There's no running water, no toilet, just a hole behind the barn, and the hope that no one sees you use it before sunrise. The day begins not with dreams, but with duty. Outside, the fields stretch out like an ocean of dirt and possibility. Rice, millet, maybe a few vegetables if you've been clever with irrigation. You'll spend most of your life bent over these rows, hands calloused, back aching, under the watchful eyes of local officials who care less about your well-being than they do about meeting the empire's quotas. This is life under the rule of legalism, the philosophy that governs the Qin Dynasty. There are laws for everything. How many hours you must work, how much grain you must give to the state, how fast you must walk when carrying official messages. And yes, there are punishments for breaking them. Not just fines or lectures, real, physical consequences. So you move carefully, speak cautiously, and never, ever forget who's in charge. But somehow, despite the weight of empire on your shoulders, you smile. Because today, after the long day of labor, there will be a simple meal of steamed millet and pickled greens. Your child will laugh at something silly, and your wife will hum an old tune while grinding grain. This is your life, not grand, not glorious, but real. Let's begin your day. You rise slowly, like an old ox pulling a stubborn plow. Your joints protest, knees creaky, back stiff from yesterday's toil, but you have no time for complaints. There is work to be done, and the state does not care if your body aches or your soul weeps. You pull yourself up using the wooden beam beside your sleeping mat, take a moment to stretch, then step outside. The air is crisp and sharp with the scent of damp earth and distant pine. A thin layer of mist clings to the fields like a ghost reluctant to leave. Somewhere nearby, water trickles through a bamboo irrigation channel you helped dig last spring. A small victory in a life full of labor. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with the morning air, and then it begins, the rhythm of the day. Your first task is to check on the animals. You keep 2 scrawny chickens and a single goat, all gifts from your father before he passed. The goat bleats at you as you toss it some dried grass, while the chickens peck at the dirt near your feet. You mutter a quiet greeting to them. It's not that they understand, but it feels good to speak, even if only to livestock. Back inside, your wife is already grinding millet into flour with a stone hand mill. Her hands move with practiced ease, though her face shows signs of weariness. She glances up and offers a tired smile. "It will rain later," she says. You nod. Farmers know how to read the sky better than any scholar. Breakfast is simple, steamed millet cakes wrapped in lotus leaves, served with pickled mustard greens and boiled water flavored with wild herbs. It's not much, but it warms your stomach and gives you strength. Your children, your son, 7 years old, and your daughter, 5, are already halfway done, their mouths smeared with grain. You eat quickly, savoring the warmth, knowing that once you're out in the fields, food becomes memory until nightfall. Then comes the law. As you prepare your tools, wooden plow, bamboo baskets, sickle, you hear the rhythmic sound of drums echoing from the village center. Thump thump. Not the joyful beat of celebration, but the official summons from the local magistrate's office. Everyone must gather. Now, you exchange a glance with your wife. This isn't unusual. The Qin Empire runs on rules, and rules require reminders. Sometimes it's a new tax rate. Other times a public punishment. Whatever it is, you must go. Refusal is not an option. You walk barefoot down the dusty path toward the central square, where a wooden platform stands like a throne for the voice of the state. Around you, your neighbors shuffle in, farmers, weavers, potters, all dressed in rough hemp tunics, faces worn by sun and wind. Children run ahead, chasing each other between legs, unaware of the gravity that hovers over the adults. On the platform stands the village clerk, a thin man with a brush pen behind his ear and scrolls tucked under one arm. He reads aloud in a monotone voice, reciting the latest imperial decrees. All households must report crop yields monthly. Failure to do so results in 3 days of forced labor in the granary. Any farmer found hiding grain from the state shall be branded. Theft of state property is punishable by death. A shiver runs through the crowd. You feel it too. Death for stealing? But what if your child is hungry? There are more announcements. Quotas for rice production, instructions for road maintenance, warnings about unauthorized gatherings. Every word reminds you that you are not just a farmer. You are a cog in a vast machine built by Emperor Qin Shi Huang himself, the first emperor of China. Legalism, the philosophy that guides this empire, is clear. People are inherently selfish, and only strict laws and harsh punishments can keep society in order. Mercy is weakness. Discipline is virtue. But here's the irony. Despite its cruelty, legalism works. Roads are maintained. Taxes are collected. Bandits are scarce. The empire functions, and for that, you owe your survival to the very system that weighs on your shoulders. After the announcement ends, the crowd disperses quietly. No applause. No cheers. Just silence, heavy and thick like the summer heat. You return home, your mind filled with thoughts you dare not speak aloud. Back at the farm, you strap the wooden harness onto your ox, a patient creature named Baisi, and begin the slow process of plowing the field. The soil is dry and hard, resisting the blade, forcing you to push harder. Sweat forms on your brow within minutes. Baisi groans softly, sensing your effort, and steps forward with steady determination. You work in rhythm with the beast, moving up and down the rows, carving furrows deep enough to plant seeds. Behind you, your son follows with a basket of millet grains, dropping them carefully into the soil at regular intervals. He's too young to carry a plow, but old enough to learn. Farming is not just a job, it's a legacy. As the sun climbs higher, so does the temperature. The world around you hums with life, cicadas chirping, birds calling, the occasional buzz of a fly landing on your arm. You sweat it away and keep working. At midday, you pause briefly to drink water from a gourd flask. You sit beneath a shade tree, chewing on a strip of dried fish gifted by your brother-in-law last new moon festival. Your daughter brings you a handful of wild berries she picked near the stream. Sweet and tart, they burst in your mouth like tiny fireworks. For a moment, you forget the weight of taxes, the fear of punishment, the ache in your muscles. You look at your family. Your son wipes sweat from his brow with the sleeve of his tunic. Your daughter squints against the sunlight, smiling at something she sees in the distance. Your wife watches you both, her expression unreadable yet comforting. This is your reward. Not gold, not titles, not land deeds signed in red ink. But this fragile, fleeting peace is yours alone. And then, just as you're about to resume work, another drumbeat sounds in the distance. Faster this time. Urgent. You freeze. Another summons? No. This is different. This is the alarm. Someone has been caught stealing grain. From the corner of your eye, you see villagers running toward the square again. This time, there is no hesitation, only dread. You stand up slowly, wiping your hands on your pants. Baisi senses your unease and lets out a low moan. You know what happens next. You've seen it before. Public punishment. Immediate. Unforgiving. The law demands obedience. And today, someone will pay the price. You walk toward the village square with heavy steps, each one echoing the pounding of your heart. The air feels different now, thicker, charged with a tension that makes even the birds fall silent. You glance at your son, who trails behind you, clutching your wife's hand. He doesn't understand yet, but he will. By the time you arrive, the crowd has already gathered in a tight circle around the platform. At its center stands a man on his knees, bound at the wrists by coarse rope. His face is streaked with dirt and tears, his head bowed low as if trying to disappear into the earth itself. A boy no older than your son clings to the hem of his tattered robe. The child trembles, eyes wide with confusion and fear. The magistrate, a tall man dressed in stiff robes embroidered with symbols of authority, stands above them all, flanked by 2 guards armed with bamboo staffs. His voice cuts through the silence like a blade. This man was caught stealing grain from the state granary. Theft is not just a crime against the law, it is a crime against order. Order is what holds this empire together. Without it, we are nothing. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Some nod in agreement. Others look away, unwilling to witness what they know is coming. You feel your stomach twist. This is legalism in action, the philosophy that governs your life with an iron fist. It demands obedience, not mercy. It sees human nature as flawed, and only through strict laws and harsh punishment can society be controlled. A guard steps forward and unrolls a scroll. The decree is read aloud. For theft of state property, the man shall receive 50 lashes. If he survives, he will serve 3 years of forced labor. His family shall remain under supervision for the next 5 years. Gasps. More murmurs. Your wife grips your arm. 50 lashes. That's enough to kill a strong man. Enough to leave scars that never fade. The boy clings tighter to his father's robe, crying now, but a guard pulls him back roughly. The mother tries to step forward, but another guard blocks her path. She falls to her knees, pleading silently. Then it begins. The first strike lands with a sharp crack, followed by a cry so raw it chills your blood. You close your eyes, but the sound continues, again and again, relentless. Each lash echoes in your chest like a hammer to your ribs. When it ends, the man is barely conscious, his back a mess of red and swollen flesh. The guards drag him away without ceremony. His wife watches in silence, her expression hollow. Her son stares after them, tears still streaming down his face. The crowd disperses slowly, like leaves scattered by the wind. No one speaks. No one dares. You walk home in silence. Your children don't ask questions. They've seen enough to understand that some things are better left unspoken. Back at the farm, the sun has reached its peak, casting long shadows over the fields. The work waits for no one. You return to the plow, guiding Bizy down the furrows once more. But your mind is elsewhere. You think about the man being punished. Was it really theft? Or desperation? Did he steal because his children were hungry? Did he have a choice? Legalism says no. Intent doesn't matter. Only the act. Only the law. But deep inside, a quiet rebellion stirs. What kind of justice punishes a starving man for feeding his family? What kind of empire builds itself on fear alone? Still, you keep your thoughts to yourself. In the Qin Dynasty, even suspicion of disloyalty can bring ruin. As the afternoon stretches on, the sky begins to darken. The rain your wife predicted is coming. You hurry to cover the seedlings you planted earlier, shielding them with woven straw mats. By the time you finish, the first drops begin to fall, light at first, then heavier, drumming against the earth like the footsteps of 1,000 soldiers. You retreat to the house, where the fire crackles warmly in the hearth. Your wife prepares a simple meal of steamed millet porridge and boiled greens, seasoned with a pinch of salt and wild garlic. It's humble fare, but it smells comforting, familiar. You eat in silence, listening to the rain tapping gently against the roof. Outside, the world grows darker, the storm swallowing the land in gray. Later that evening, after the dishes are washed and the children are asleep, you sit with your wife near the fire. She rests her head on your shoulder, and you wrap an arm around her. "You saw what happened today," she whispers. You nod. "Do you think he did it?" "I don't know," you say quietly. "Maybe. Maybe not." She exhales softly. "It doesn't matter. The law doesn't care." You stare into the flames, watching them dance and flicker. For a moment, they remind you of something else, something distant and almost forgotten. Hope. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that inspires revolutions or topples empires. But the small, stubborn kind. The kind that keeps a farmer working his field despite the weight of taxes and fear. Because tomorrow, the sun will rise again. And with it, another day of labor. Another day of discipline. Another day of survival. And maybe, just maybe, another chance to find peace between the rows. The rain continues through the night, a steady rhythm tapping against the thatched roof like fingers drumming on wood. Inside your home, the fire burns low, casting flickering shadows on the earthen walls. The children sleep curled together under a single hemp blanket, their breathing soft and even. Your wife lies beside you, her back turned slightly toward the fire, her breath slow and deep. You stay awake longer than you should, staring at the ceiling, listening to the storm outside and the quiet within. You think about the man who was punished today, his cries, his son's tears, and how easily it could have been you. How close every farmer walks to the edge of ruin. But tonight, for now, your family is safe. Tomorrow will bring another day of labor, another round of taxes, another reminder of the empire's iron grip. But tonight belongs to something softer, something quieter, something that doesn't appear in scrolls or laws but lives in the spaces between them. It lives in the hum of your wife's lullaby, in the warmth of small bodies pressed close together, in the shared silence after a hard day's work, when there is nothing more to give except presence. This is what keeps you going, not just duty, not just fear, but love. Morning comes slowly, wrapped in mist and damp air. The storm has passed, leaving behind puddles in the yard and the scent of soaked earth. Birds call from the trees nearby, their songs sharp and bright against the stillness. Your daughter wakes first, stretching like a cat and rubbing her eyes with tiny fists. She climbs over her brother, who groans and swats at her, and crawls into your lap. Her hair is tangled, her face smudged with sleep, but she grins up at you as if the world hasn't ended overnight. "Can I help today?" she asks, her voice still hoarse from sleep. You smile. Of course. Everyone helps. Breakfast is simple again, steamed millet porridge with a bit of pickled radish. Your son eats quickly, eager to get outside and chase Bisey around the field. He dreams of one day plowing on his own, of guiding the ox with a firm hand and a confident voice. You watch him go, feeling pride bloom quietly in your chest. He is growing, learning, becoming, and then it hits you, that strange, bittersweet ache of time passing. One day, he'll be the one rising before dawn, shoulders heavy with responsibility. One day, you won't be here to teach him how to tie the harness or read the clouds for signs of rain. But for now, he is yours, and you are his. As the sun climbs higher, you head out to check the fields. The rain has left the soil soft and rich, perfect for planting. You kneel down, pressing your fingers into the earth. It clings to your skin like memory. From the corner of your eye, you see movement. A neighbor approaches, old Liang, the potter, carrying a bundle wrapped in cloth. He nods as he reaches you. "Morning." "Morning," you reply, standing. Liang sets the bundle on the ground and unwraps it. Inside are 2 clay bowls, freshly fired and painted with simple swirling patterns. "For your wife," he says. "She always admired my work." You blink in surprise. "Liang, this is too much." He shrugs. No such thing as too much between neighbors. You accept the bowls carefully, feeling their smooth surface beneath your fingers. "Thank you." He watches you for a moment, then adds, "I heard what happened yesterday." You nod stiffly. "Everyone did. I remember when it was me," he says quietly. "Years ago. My youngest was sick. Couldn't afford medicine. Took a handful of grain from the granary. Thought no one would notice." You hold your breath. "They didn't punish me," he continues. "Not because they were kind. Because someone spoke for me. Said I had always paid my taxes, worked hard, never caused trouble. They let me off with a warning." You glance at him, seeing new lines on his face, deeper than age alone could carve. "Community," he says simply. "That's what kept me alive. Not the law, not the emperor, but people." You look around. Across the fields, other farmers are already at work. Some wave as they pass. Others exchange quiet greetings. There is no grand declaration of unity, no written contract binding you together. Just a shared understanding. We survive by helping each other. Even under legalism's cold gaze, even under the weight of imperial rule, community endures. Later that afternoon, your wife prepares a stew of millet, wild greens, and a few dried mushrooms she collected last autumn. The smell fills the house, warm and comforting. She sets the new bowls on the table, filled with steaming food. You eat slowly, savoring the flavors. Outside, your children play near the goat, giggling as it nibbles at their sleeves. Liang visits briefly, bringing a jar of fermented soybeans as thanks for accepting the bowls. There is no music, no celebration. Just life. Quiet, ordinary life. And yet, it feels sacred. Because in a world ruled by fear, where every misstep can bring punishment, where survival is a daily struggle, you find joy in the smallest things. A child's laughter, a shared meal, a gift from a friend. These moments are your rebellion. They don't topple empires or rewrite laws, but they remind you that you are more than a subject, more than a number in an imperial ledger. You are a father, a husband, a neighbor, a friend. You are human. As the sky darkens once more, you sit with your family near the hearth. The fire crackles softly, its glow painting golden light across their faces. Your daughter leans against your shoulder, half asleep. Your son traces invisible shapes in the dirt floor with his finger. Your wife hums again, a tune older than either of you can remember. It drifts through the room like smoke, curling around your hearts. Outside, the wind whispers through the bamboo. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls. You close your eyes. For a moment, the empire fades away, and all that remains is this. The days grow shorter. The sun rises later, lingers less, and sets earlier, as if it too is tired from the weight of the season. Autumn has arrived, bringing with it the scent of dry grass, the rustle of golden leaves, and the quiet promise of harvest. You've spent months preparing for this moment, plowing the earth in spring, sowing seeds in summer, tending to the plants through long, humid days. Now the fields are heavy with grain. Rice bends at the stalk, millet stands tall but ripe, ready to be cut. The air carries a crispness that wasn't there before, a whisper of winter's approach. It is time. At dawn, you rise before the rooster crows, already dressed in your work tunic. Your wife stirs awake beside you, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She doesn't need to ask what day it is. Everyone knows. This is the start of the harvest, the most important week of the year. Outside, the world is still wrapped in gray-blue light, the horizon just beginning to blush with gold. The oxen stir in their pens. Tools have been sharpened overnight. Baskets woven. Ropes tied. Everything is ready. Your son rubs his eyes sleepily as he follows you outside. "Can I help with the sickle?" he asks. "Not yet," you say gently. "But soon." He pouts but nods, determined to prove himself. By the time you reach the field, other farmers are already there. Old Liang with his wide-brimmed straw hat, the weaver's family carrying bundles of cloth to trade after the harvest, even the village elder, who rarely joins in manual labor anymore, but insists on overseeing everything. There is a rhythm to the harvest, a dance of movement and sweat. You begin by cutting the rice first, bending low with the curved sickle, slicing just above the roots. Each motion is deliberate, practiced. Behind you, your wife gathers the stalks into neat bundles, tying them together with strips of hemp. Children run between the rows, collecting stray grains and placing them carefully into baskets. They laugh, unaware of the pressure pressing down on every adult present. This harvest determines more than just food for the winter. It determines whether you will have enough to survive the empire's taxes. Because today the tax collectors come. Mid-morning they arrive, 3 men dressed in stiff uniforms, their faces stern, their scrolls tucked under one arm. One of them, clearly the leader, rides a horse, its hooves leaving deep imprints in the soft earth. They don't greet anyone. There is no small talk, no offer of tea or shade. They walk straight to your pile of harvested grain and begin their inspection. One of them steps forward with a wooden measuring stick, dipping it into the basket to determine volume. Another opens a small scale, weighing a handful of rice to test its quality. You watch closely, heart pounding. You know the rules. 1/3 of your total yield must go to the state. If the grain is deemed poor quality, you may be fined. If you are found hiding any portion, you will face punishment. No one hides anything. Not anymore. The leader flips open a scroll and begins reading aloud. Household of Zhongwei. Rice yield, 200 jin. Millet, 150 jin. Acceptable quality. Tax due, 117 jin of rice and 65 jin of millet. You nod, though your stomach twists. That is nearly half of what you worked so hard to grow. What remains must last your family until next harvest. A guard steps forward and begins loading the required amount onto a cart. You do not protest. You do not speak unless spoken to. You simply watch as your labor is taken away, piece by piece. When they finish, the leader stamps your household record with red ink, a mark of compliance. Then, without another word, they leave, disappearing down the road toward the next village. Only then do you exhale. As the afternoon stretches on, the rest of the harvest continues. But now, there is a heaviness in the air, a reminder that even in abundance, scarcity looms. Later that evening, you sit with your family around the fire. The meal is modest: steamed millet cakes, boiled greens, a few pickled vegetables. Enough to fill empty stomachs, but barely. Your son looks up from his bowl. Why do they take so much? You glance at your wife. She gives you a look that says not tonight, but you answer anyway. Because the empire needs soldiers, roads, walls, and all of that requires grain. But won't we have enough? He asks. You smile softly. We always do. And it's true. Somehow, despite everything, you always manage. You stretch meals, hunt wild roots, trade surplus eggs or cloth for salt or oil. You survive. But survival is not the same as thriving. Later that night, as the fire dies down and the children sleep, you and your wife sit outside, looking up at the stars. They took more than usual this year, she murmurs. You nod. The emperor is building something again. A new wall, I heard. She sighs. Another tomb, maybe. You both fall silent. Yes. The emperor is building many things: massive walls, grand palaces, and yes, tombs. His own, some say, guarded by thousands of clay soldiers buried beneath the earth. You wonder how many farmers' lives were stripped bare to fund those projects. How many families gave their grain, their sons, their futures, to build monuments for a man who never set foot in their villages. Legalism promised order. It delivered discipline. But where was the justice? Where was the balance? You don't say these thoughts out loud. Not here. Not now. Instead, you reach over and take your wife's hand. She squeezes yours gently. Tomorrow will bring another day of labor, another round of worry, another test of endurance. But tonight, the stars shine bright above you. The wind whispers through the trees, and your family is safe. That, at least, is something worth holding on to. You put away the last of your tools, placing them neatly in the corner of the house. The night is deep now, only the whisper of insects in the fields and the steady breathing of your children filling the air. You watch your wife, seated by the dying fire, her hands carefully mending a torn sleeve on your son's tunic. The flickering light dances across her face, revealing lines of exhaustion, but also strength. You realize something in this quiet moment. Despite the harsh laws, despite the heavy taxes and the ever-present fear, you are still here, still loving, still hoping. You are not a king, not a general, just a farmer among millions in this vast empire. And yet it is people like you, your resilience, your labor, your silent endurance, that built the first unified China. Not with swords or armies, but with calloused hands, sweat-soaked tunics, and unspoken sacrifices. History may never write your name, but it carries your footsteps in every furrowed field, in every grain of rice, in every breath of civilization that follows. As you lie down on your thin mat, feeling the warmth of your family beside you, remember this. You lived, not with grandeur, not with glory, but with quiet strength. And that too is greatness. The strangest customs of ancient Greece. You wake up in the cool hush of early morning Athens, 432 BCE. The sky above is just beginning to blush with the first hints of daylight, casting long shadows across the whitewashed walls of your small home near the agora. A rooster crows somewhere nearby, its voice slicing through the stillness like a rusty knife. You blink into the dim light, the scent of figs drying on a wooden tray mixing with the ever-present tang of olive oil. The floor beneath you is cold stone, worn smooth by generations of sandals and bare feet. Outside, the city stirs slowly to life, murmurs of conversation, the clatter of pottery, the occasional bark of a dog chasing dust in the street. Somewhere not far away, a lyre begins to pluck out a quiet melody, as if the city itself is stretching awake. Today is no ordinary day. It's the eve of the Panathenea, the grand festival honoring Athena, goddess of wisdom and war. And you are not just any citizen. You are a Kinephoros, one of the young women chosen to carry the sacred basket during the procession. It's an honor, yes, but also a responsibility that weighs heavier than the woven wreath resting on your head. As you step outside, the world rushes in. The agora buzzes with merchants setting up stalls, philosophers arguing under colonnades, and priests murmuring prayers as they prepare for the day's rituals. Smoke curls from altars where offerings smolder, and the air hums with the energy of a city caught between reason and reverence. This is Athens at its height, democratic, dramatic, deeply devoted to both debate and divinity. And today, you'll witness some of the most curious customs that bind this city together. From reading the future in the entrails of sheep to voting neighbors into exile, from consulting oracles in distant caves to tossing laurel wreaths into sacred flames. So take a deep breath, tie your sandals, and walk with us into the heart of ancient Greece, a land where gods walked among mortals, democracy was born, and every flame might hold a message from the divine. The morning sun climbs higher, casting golden light over the marble steps of the agora. You walk among the crowd, merchants hawking fig cakes and honeyed almonds, philosophers gesturing wildly as they debate the nature of justice, and priests with solemn faces carrying bronze basins filled with fresh myrtle branches. But today, your path leads not to the market or the fountain, but up the winding road toward the sacred precinct. You're on your way to meet the oracle. Yes, the very name sends a shiver down your spine. Not just any oracle, the Oracle of Delphi. She who speaks for Apollo himself. Her words have shaped the fates of kings, generals, and entire cities. And now, you're about to stand before her, hoping for a glimpse into what lies ahead. But first, let's talk about why this matters. In Athens, decisions aren't made lightly. Not by politicians, not by generals, and certainly not by ordinary citizens like you. Before launching a war, founding a colony, or even choosing a marriage partner, people turn to the gods. They seek signs, omens in the flight of birds, patterns in the stars, or most famously, messages from the Pythia, the priestess at Delphi. So here you are, making the journey along the sacred way, flanked by olive trees and crumbling statues worn smooth by time. The scent of pine and wild thyme fills the air. Pilgrims walk beside you, some richly dressed, others barefoot and weeping. Each carries something for the god: gold coins, carved animals, scrolls with questions written in careful script. After days of travel, you finally reach the sanctuary of Apollo atop Mount Parnassus. The temple looms before you, massive columns framing a dark doorway that seems to breathe secrets. Inside, it smells of burning laurel and smoldering incense. A hush falls over the crowd as the Pythia enters. She is older than you expected, wrapped in flowing white robes, her eyes distant, unfocused. She descends into a chamber beneath the temple where the sacred vapors rise, mysterious fumes believed to be the breath of Apollo himself. As she inhales them, her voice begins to change, becoming strange and otherworldly. Then comes the question, yours. A priest interprets her rambling response, a prophecy veiled in riddles and metaphors. Something about a ship without oars, a crown hidden in fire, and a shadow walking backward. It doesn't make much sense now, but you'll spend weeks pondering its meaning. Because that's how it works. The gods don't give straight answers. They speak in whispers, shadows, and smoke. And it's up to mortals to decipher their will. This isn't just superstition, it's serious business. Even Pericles, the great leader of Athens, consulted the oracle before major decisions. So did Sparta's kings and Corinth's generals. The Greeks didn't see divine guidance as opposed to reason. They saw it as part of it. After all, if the gods had power over fate, wouldn't it be foolish to act without asking? And so, divination becomes a daily ritual in many forms. Some farmers inspect the entrails of sacrificed goats before planting crops. Sailors look for lightning in the sky before setting out to sea. Politicians might observe whether a bird flew left or right when they stepped outside in the morning. Yes, you heard that right. Bird watching was a form of statecraft. If a bird flew from left to right, it was considered a favorable sign. Right to left? Bad news. Cancel the meeting. Don't go to war. Maybe stay inside and eat olives. It might sound ridiculous to modern ears, but imagine living in a world without weather forecasts, stock markets, or political polls. How else would you decide when to plant your wheat, when to send your ships, or whether to trust a new ally? Divination gave people a sense of control in an unpredictable world. It wasn't irrational, it was practical. Like checking your horoscope before a big interview, or knocking on wood when you say something tempting aloud. Back in Athens, the practice of consulting the gods continues long after your return from Delphi. At home, Your family gathers around a small altar in the courtyard. Your mother lights a candle and burns a pinch of barley flour while whispering a prayer to Hestia, goddess of the hearth. "May our house remain strong," she murmurs. Your father throws a handful of salt into the fire. Sparks leap upward like tiny stars. And then you wait. Did the flame flare brightly? Did the salt hiss just right? These are omens. Small, everyday signs that help guide your life. In a way, you're still doing this today. Think of the lucky socks you wear before a job interview, the rabbit's foot in your bag, the habit of crossing your fingers when you hope for good news. We may not consult priestesses anymore, but we still search for signs. We still want to believe that someone or something is watching, guiding, warning us. And in ancient Athens, that belief brought people together. Whether rich or poor, citizen or slave, everyone looked to the heavens for answers. Everyone shared in the mystery. So tonight, as you lie on your straw mat under the open sky, the stars above twinkling like the eyes of the gods themselves, you think back on the oracle's words. A ship without oars, a crown hidden in fire, a shadow walking backward. What could it mean? Only time, and perhaps another visit to the temple, will tell. The sun has climbed high above the Acropolis, casting a warm glow over Athens. The city is alive with movement, vendors shouting, children chasing goats through narrow alleys, and the ever-present clatter of pottery echoing from workshops. But today, there's something more in the air than just the usual buzz of daily life. There's the scent of incense and blood. Today is Hecatomb, the day of the great sacrifice. And you, dear citizen, are about to witness one of the most sacred and most unsettling rituals of ancient Greek religion. The ritual slaughter of an animal as an offering to the gods. It's not for the faint of heart. You make your way toward the temple of Zeus Peleus, where a crowd has already gathered. Priests in flowing white robes stand beside a massive altar, its stone surface darkened by years of offerings. At the center of it all stands a bull, strong, proud, and unaware that today will be his last. He's been chosen carefully, a perfect specimen, unblemished, strong-limbed, with a coat that gleams like polished bronze under the sunlight. He's been fed barley cakes and bathed in sacred water. His horns have been wrapped in gold leaf. This is no ordinary beast. He is a gift to the gods themselves. A hush falls over the crowd as the moment arrives. The bull is led forward, adorned with garlands of flowers and ribbons. Children press close, reaching out to touch his side. A woman whispers a prayer, clutching her infant tightly to her chest. Even the dogs seem to sense the gravity of the occasion. They sit quietly, ears perked, watching. Then comes the priestess, carrying a basin of water. She dips her hands into it and sprinkles droplets over the heads of the gathered people. This is the lustral water, meant to purify those who witness the act. You feel the cool splash against your skin, and suddenly, you're part of something bigger than yourself. Next, the bull is offered grain in a wooden bowl. If he accepts it willingly, that's a sign the gods approve. He lowers his head and begins to eat. That's the signal. A man steps forward. You can't see his face beneath the heavy veil he wears. In his hand is a short, curved knife. With a swift motion, he strikes the base of the bull's neck. There's a sharp cry, more surprise than pain, and then silence. The animal collapses, its body twitching once before stillness takes over. This is not cruelty. This is devotion. The priests move quickly now, slicing open the belly and pulling out the entrails. A team of skilled attendants removes the organs, washing them carefully in bowls of water. The liver, lungs, and heart are examined closely by the seer, the religious expert who reads signs from the gods. Good omens, he announces after a moment. The gods are pleased. A wave of relief passes through the crowd. Now comes the most sacred part of the ritual, the burning of the thigh bones. These are wrapped in fat and placed on the altar, where they begin to sizzle and smoke. The scent rises upward, curling into the sky, a symbolic meal for the immortal gods who dwell above. But the rest of the meat, that's for you, for the people. And here's where the ritual turns festive. Skilled butchers carve the carcass into portions, distributing slabs of beef to families waiting eagerly with baskets and cloths. The women take charge, threading chunks onto spits or wrapping them in fig leaves with herbs and olive oil. Fires are lit in courtyards across the city. The smell of roasting meat fills the streets. What was once a solemn ceremony becomes a joyous celebration. Children laugh as they chase each other through the smoke. Musicians begin to play flutes and tambourines. Old men tell stories of past sacrifices, exaggerating the size of the bulls and the strength of the priests. Wine flows freely, because this isn't just about worship, it's about community. In ancient Greece, sacrifice wasn't about suffering, it was about sharing. It was one of the few times when rich and poor ate together, when everyone had a taste of meat, which otherwise was a luxury only the wealthy could afford regularly. It was a reminder that, despite their differences, they were all citizens of the same polis, bound by the same gods and traditions. And yet, it's hard not to feel a pang of unease. After all, you've just watched a living creature die, not for food alone, but for something unseen, something invisible. You didn't hear the gods speak, nor did you see them accept the offering. All you saw was blood, smoke, and a crowd of people hoping for favor from beings they would never meet face to face. Does it work? Perhaps not in the way we understand cause and effect today. But in the world of ancient Athens, it made sense. The Greeks believed that the gods needed to be honored, appeased, and reminded of humanity's existence. In return, they might grant good harvests, protect the city from invaders, or bless marriages with healthy children. It was a contract, one written in flame and flesh. And if the gods weren't happy, well, that could mean drought, plague, or defeat in war. So better safe than sorry. Even Socrates, the great philosopher who questioned everything, participated in sacrifices. When asked why he did so despite his skepticism, he simply said, to avoid being blamed for neglecting tradition. So yes, even the wisest among them played along. Of course, not every sacrifice was this grand. Some were small, private affairs held at home altars. A family might offer a chicken or a goat instead of a bull. A farmer might pour wine onto the soil before planting season. A sailor might toss a coin into the sea before setting sail. These smaller rituals mattered too. They were acts of gratitude, of hope, of continuity. And in many ways, we still do the same today. Think of the candle you light in a church or temple. The toast you raise before a big event. The silent prayer you whisper before opening an important email. We may not burn oxen anymore, but we still make offerings of time, of effort, of belief. Back in the agora, the festival continues late into the night. Fires crackle, laughter echoes, and the stars above seem closer than ever. Somewhere, someone strums a lyre while another person sings a hymn to Apollo. You sit with your family, chewing slowly on a piece of roasted beef, savoring the flavor. Tonight, you are full. Tonight, you are connected to your ancestors, your neighbors, and perhaps even the gods themselves. Tomorrow, life will return to normal. But tonight, the gods have dined with mortals, and for a brief moment, the world feels whole. The sun is setting over Athens, casting long shadows across the marble streets. The scent of roasted meat still lingers in the air from the earlier sacrifice, but now something else is stirring. Something raw, primal, almost electric. It's time for the Anthesteria. This isn't just another festival. It's one of the strangest, wildest, and most deeply rooted in ancient tradition. A 3-day celebration dedicated to Dionysus, the god of wine, theater, and ecstatic madness. It's when the veil between the living and the dead grows thin, when slaves dine with their masters, and when even the most reserved citizens let go of decorum and surrender to the chaos of the divine. And you're right in the middle of it. Your house has been sealed with pitch to keep out evil spirits. You don't want any wandering souls sneaking in while you sleep. Everyone wears garlands of flowers, and your lips are stained red from drinking sweet, undiluted wine straight from the jug. Yes, undiluted. That alone should tell you this is no ordinary occasion. Wine, after all, was always mixed with water in proper Athenian society. Drinking it neat was considered barbaric, or worse, a sign that Dionysus had taken hold of you. And tonight, that's exactly what everyone hopes will happen. You step into the street and immediately get swept up in the tide of revelers. Men wear masks of satyrs and goats, women dance barefoot in the dust, and children run around with honey dripping down their chins. Someone shoves a cup into your hand before vanishing into the crowd. Laughter rings out like bells, and someone nearby begins to play a wild tune on the aulos, a double reed instrument that sounds somewhere between a scream and a laugh. Welcome to the heart of the Anthesteria. Tonight is the second day of the festival, the Chos or pitchers. Each household sets up small clay jugs of wine at their doorstep as offerings to the spirits of the dead. And everyone, young and old, drinks until they can't remember their own name. Even the children. Yes, really. It's said that during these days, Dionysus walks among mortals, not as a distant statue in a temple, but as a living force in every drop of wine, every drumbeat, every heartbeat pounding in sync with the music. There's a story told each year during the Anthesteria about how Dionysus once came to Athens in disguise, seeking shelter from a storm. He offered his host a jar of wine in return for a place by the fire. But the man, greedy and suspicious, tried to steal the wine and was struck mad for his arrogance. So now people drink to honor him, but also to remind themselves not to take too much. Balance, as always, is key, even in madness. As night deepens, the energy shifts. The laughter turns into something more intense, more sacred. People begin to move toward the sanctuary of Dionysus in the Limni district, where the city's most important rites are held. Here, beneath torchlight flickering against stone walls, the real magic happens. Priestesses dressed in flowing purple robes lead processions through the temple grounds. They chant in rhythmic unison, swaying with the beat of drums that seem to pulse like a second heartbeat. Some have begun to tremble, eyes wide, breath uneven, as if touched by something unseen. One woman collapses to her knees, speaking in tongues. Another dances wildly, arms flailing like branches caught in a storm. These are not performances. This is possession, real or believed, and in ancient Greece it is seen as a gift. To be chosen by Dionysus is both terrifying and holy. In modern terms, we might call it hysteria, psychosis, or even performance art. But to the Greeks, it was divine communication, a way for the gods to speak directly through human bodies, bypassing words and logic to reach something deeper, something primal. You watch as a priestess falls into a trance, muttering lines that sound like poetry and prophecy combined. Her voice rises and falls, echoing off the stone walls. No one interrupts. Everyone listens. Because in this moment, she is not herself. She is Dionysus. And then suddenly the mood changes again. The possessed fall silent. The music stops. The crowd holds its breath. A new figure steps forward. It's the Archon Basilius, the ceremonial king of Athens, who plays a central role in the rites. Tonight, he becomes something more than a politician. He becomes the husband of the goddess. Yes, really. In a symbolic marriage ritual known as the Hieros Gamos, the Archon is united with a priestess representing the spirit of Athens itself. It's an act meant to ensure fertility for the land, harmony between the people and the gods, and protection for the city. The ceremony is intimate, hidden behind veils, but its meaning is clear. The city and its patron must remain connected. Without balance, without devotion, there is only chaos. By morning, the festival begins to wind down. The revelry softens. The wine runs dry. People return to their homes, heads pounding, clothes stained with flower petals and spilled wine. But something lingers. Not just a hangover, but a feeling. A sense that for 3 days, the world turned upside down, and for a brief moment, you were part of something bigger than yourself. That's the power of festivals in ancient Greece. They weren't just excuses to party, though they certainly included that. They were moments of transformation, when the rigid structures of daily life, class, gender, status, were temporarily dissolved. When men could dress as women, when slaves could sit at the same table as their masters, and when even the dead were invited to join the feast. These rituals reminded people that they were not alone, that they belonged to their families, to their city, and to the divine forces that shaped the world. Of course, not all festivals were this wild. Some, like the Panathenaea, were grand and solemn, filled with processions, sacrifices, and speeches. Others, like the Thesmophoria, were strictly for women and involved secret rites related to fertility and the cycle of life and death. But whether stately or chaotic, all of them served a purpose. They created rhythm in the calendar. They reinforced shared values. They gave people a chance to express joy, grief, fear, and hope in ways that everyday life rarely allowed. And perhaps most importantly, they reminded everyone that they lived in a world full of invisible forces. Gods walked among them. Spirits whispered in the dark. The past was never truly gone, and the future was always uncertain. So they danced, they drank, they sang, they prayed, and in doing so they made meaning out of mystery. Back home, you lie down on your mat, exhausted but strangely at peace. Outside, the city sleeps under a blanket of stars. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks. A breeze rustles the olive tree outside your window. Tomorrow, life will return to normal. But tonight, Dionysus walked the streets of Athens, and you, dear citizen, followed in his footsteps. The festival's wild echoes have faded. The streets are quiet again, the scent of wine and flowers replaced by the dry dust of the agora. Athens has returned to its usual rhythm, merchants shouting over one another, philosophers debating under colonnades, and slaves sweeping courtyards with slow, steady strokes. But today is different. Today, something strange is happening near the Stoa, a long, shaded walkway where citizens often gather to talk politics. A group of men stands around a wooden table piled high with broken pieces of pottery. Each shard bears a name scratched into it with careful precision. Your name might be there, because today is ostracism day. Yes, ostracism, not just a fancy word for being ignored, but an actual law in ancient Athens. Once a year, if enough citizens vote for it, they get to exile someone from the city for 10 years. No trial, no jury, just a name written on a potsherd and cast into a basket. And you're not just watching, you might be voted out. Let's rewind. You're standing in the agora, surrounded by hundreds of fellow Athenian citizens. Everyone eligible, freeborn male citizens over 30, has come to decide who among them must go. There's no crime involved here, no formal accusation. It's more like popularity gone horribly wrong. Are you too powerful? Too influential? Too dangerous? Then you might be going away. This was Athens' way of dealing with potential tyrants before they could rise. In a democracy built on balance, no single person was supposed to hold too much power. If someone got too popular or too feared, the people had the right to send them packing. Not to prison, not to death, but to exile. 10 years, far from home. All because your neighbors thought you were getting too big for your sandals. So how does it work? Each citizen receives a blank ostracan, a piece of broken pottery, and is asked to write the name of the person they believe poses the greatest threat to the stability of the state. Some scratch names carefully. Others ask a friend to help, since literacy isn't universal. And some just write down names for fun. There's a story about a man who approached a literate citizen and asked him to write Themistocles on his shard. The educated man did so, then paused, looked up, and said, "Tell me, do you even know who Themistocles is?" "No," replied the voter. "Then why are you voting against him?" "Because everyone keeps calling him the best. I'm tired of hearing it." That's the thing about democracy. It doesn't always make sense. But back to the process. To trigger an ostracism, at least 6,000 votes must be cast. That number ensures that decisions aren't made by a small, angry mob, but by a significant portion of the population. And once the votes are tallied, the person with the most votes is exiled. No appeal, no explanation, just goodbye. Now you scan the baskets anxiously. Will your name be there? You've done nothing wrong, at least not technically. You've paid your taxes in grain and labor. You've served in the military. You've offered sacrifices to Athena and poured wine to the dead. You've danced in Dionysus festivals and listened to oracles whisper riddles through smoke. But maybe you've also stood out too much. Maybe you've been too loud in council meetings. Maybe you've given too many speeches. Or perhaps you've simply been unlucky, caught in the crossfire of political rivalries or personal grudges. It happens. Even great leaders weren't immune. Aristides the Just, one of Athens' most respected generals, was once voted into exile because someone wrote his name on a shard simply because he was tired of hearing him called the Just. Imagine being exiled for being too good. Others, though, were clearly threats. Alcibiades, the brilliant but unpredictable general, would later be exiled multiple times, for both treason and scandal. He was accused of mocking sacred rites, seducing other men's wives, and even defacing statues of Hermes. In his case, the people probably had a point. But back to today. The baskets are emptied onto a large cloth spread across the marble floor. Officials begin counting the votes, their fingers moving quickly as they sort through the sea of names. A hush falls over the crowd. Then the announcement. One name rises above all others. It's not yours. Relief washes over you like cool water. Whoever it is, they'll leave within 10 days. Their property remains untouched, their family can stay, but they themselves must vanish beyond the borders of Attica. 10 years of silence. 10 years of absence. Some return wiser. Some never come back. And yet this strange, brutal system works in a way. It's messy. It's emotional. It's deeply human. But it keeps power in check. Democracy in Athens wasn't perfect. Women couldn't vote, slaves had no say, and foreigners were excluded entirely. But for those who were citizens, it gave them a voice. A real, tangible way to shape the future. And sometimes that meant silencing someone else. Sound familiar? Think of modern referendums, of impeachment hearings, of cancel culture and public shaming, of politicians rising too fast and falling just as hard. We may not use pottery shards anymore, but we still find ways to remove people from power when they overstep. Only now we do it with hashtags instead of ostraca. As the crowd begins to disperse, you linger for a moment, watching the officials gather the shards. Some will be thrown away, others will be kept as records, and some might end up buried beneath the earth, waiting centuries to be discovered by curious archaeologists. You wonder what they'll think when they read the names scratched into those broken pots. Did they understand the fear, the jealousy, the hope? Or will they just see a bunch of old trash? You smile faintly and turn to walk home, the sun dipping low behind the Acropolis. The day has reminded you of something important. Athens is a city of gods and democracy, of sacrifice and song, of prophecy and politics, but above all, it is a city of people. People who argue, who dance, who pray, who vote. People who build and destroy, who love and exile. And tonight, as you lie on your mat beneath the open sky, listening to the distant laughter of children and the soft hum of cicadas, you realize you're a part of this place. Flawed, yes. Uncertain, absolutely. But alive. And in ancient Athens, that's more than enough. The stars blink slowly above the city, as if they've seen it all before, and will see it all again. In the quiet hush of night, Athens feels both ancient and eternal. Temples stand like silent witnesses. The agora sleeps beneath the moonlight. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then falls silent. You lie on your mat, staring up at the sky, replaying the days behind you. You've stood before the oracle, searching for answers in smoke and riddles. You've watched blood spill in sacred fire, sharing meat with neighbors you barely knew. You've danced until your feet ached, drunk until your mind blurred, and let Dionysus take hold. And today, you cast your vote, sending someone away, not out of hatred but out of fear. These rituals might seem strange, even absurd, but they held this city together. They gave meaning to uncertainty, structure to chaos, belonging to strangers, and purpose to life itself. Because even in a democracy built on reason, people still needed mystery, still needed to believe in something greater than themselves. And maybe we do too. Maybe that's why we still check horoscopes, light candles for lost ones, knock on wood when we tempt fate. So tonight, as sleep begins to pull at your eyelids, remember this. You are not so different from those who walked these streets 2,000 years ago. You too seek signs. You too gather to celebrate. You too search for truth, in gods, in politics, in each other. And just like them, you keep going, because that's what people do, even in ancient Athens. Good night. Welcome to the Ice Age, 20,000 years ago, where the world is a frozen empire of ice and snow. You're not just anyone. You're a mammoth hunter, standing on a windswept plain, your breath turning to frost in the biting air. Feel the weight of a flint-tipped spear in your calloused hands, the rough hide of your furs scraping against your skin. The horizon stretches endlessly, a glittering wasteland of glaciers and tundra, where every step crunches like the world's holding its breath. Somewhere out there, a woolly mammoth's bellow rumbles through the ground, a sound that makes your heart race with both fear and hunger. This is no cozy life. The cold gnaws at your bones, and the wind howls like a pack of dire wolves circling for scraps. Your clan, your family, huddles in a cave not far off, waiting for you to bring back meat, hides, and bones to keep them alive. One wrong move, and you're lunch for a saber-toothed cat or crushed under a mammoth's foot. But you're tough, clever, and stubborn as the ice itself. You've learned to read the land, to smell danger in the air, to carve tools from stone and bone. Every day is a gamble, but there's a fire in you that refuses to flicker out. What was it like to live this way? To chase giants across a frozen world, to craft the first tools of humankind, to paint stories on cave walls by firelight? Pull your furs tighter, listen to the wind, and let's step into this journey. You're about to discover a life raw and wild, where survival was an art, and every scar told a story. Ready? The hunt begins now. Picture yourself standing on the edge of a vast tundra, the Ice Age world stretching out like a frozen sea. The ground beneath your feet is a patchwork of brittle grass and frost, crunching with every step. Glaciers loom in the distance, their jagged peaks glinting under a pale, weak sun that barely warms your face. The air is so cold it stings your lungs, and your breath hangs in clouds, mingling with the faint mist that clings to the ground. The wind is a relentless beast, whistling through scattered pines and whipping your fur cloak against your legs. Sometimes it carries snowflakes that bite your skin like tiny knives. Other times, it's just a dry, bone-chilling gust that makes your fingers ache. This is your world, hunter, and it's as beautiful as it is brutal. The landscape is alive, but not in the gentle way of a forest or meadow. Here, life fights to exist. Stunted shrubs huddle in patches, their leaves tough and waxy to survive the cold. Herds of woolly mammoths roam the plains, their shaggy coats matted with frost, each step shaking the earth. You can smell them from a mile away, musky, earthy, like wet fur and ancient dust. Their curved tusks gleam like polished bone, and their small, dark eyes scan the horizon for threats. But they're not the only giants. Woolly rhinoceroses, with horns like battering rams, graze in small groups, snorting steam into the air. Herds of reindeer and musk oxen dot the tundra, their heads bowed against the wind. And then there are the predators, saber-toothed cats, with fangs like daggers, slinking through the shadows, dire wolves, their howls echoing at dusk, and cave bears, massive and fearless, capable of crushing a man with a single swipe. Every day tests your will to survive. The cold is your constant enemy. Without fire, you'd be dead by morning. Your clan builds fires with flint and dry moss, feeding them with scavenged wood or mammoth dung when trees are scarce. You wrap yourself in layers of mammoth hide, reindeer fur, and fox pelts, stitched with sinew and bone needles. Even then, the chill seeps through, numbing your toes and stiffening your joints. You've learned to move constantly to keep blood flowing, to rub fat from kills onto your skin for extra insulation. Frostbite is a real threat. One careless night, and you could lose a finger or worse. Hunger is the other shadow that stalks you. The tundra offers little in the way of plants. In summer, you might find berries or edible roots, but for most of the year, meat is life. A single mammoth can feed your clan for weeks, its fat providing warmth and energy, its bones and tusks turned into tools and shelters. But hunting is never guaranteed. Some days, you track a herd for miles only to find they've vanished into a blizzard. Other times, you're too weak from hunger to throw a spear with force. When game is scarce, you boil bones for broth or chew strips of dried meat, tough as leather. Starvation is a slow, gnawing pain, and you've seen it claim the young and the old alike. You carry that fear in your gut, a quiet dread that drives every step. To survive, you've become a master of the land. You read the sky, gray clouds mean snow, a red dawn promises clear weather. You know the trails mammoths take, their heavy tracks pressed deep into the frost. You've learned to spot the flicker of a saber-tooth's tail in the brush, or the glint of a wolf's eyes at twilight. Your clan moves with the seasons, following herds to grazing grounds, setting up camp in caves or under rocky overhangs. You build shelters from mammoth bones and hides when no cave is near, anchoring them against the wind with heavy stones. Every tool is precious, flint knives to skin hides, scrapers to clean them, awls to punch holes for sewing. You carry fire in a hollowed-out bone, packed with embers, because starting one from scratch in a storm is a nightmare. The animals around you are both lifeline and threat. Mammoths are your main prey, but they're no easy target. A bull can stand twice your height, its trunk strong enough to fling you like a rag doll. You've seen hunters crushed or gored, their bodies left broken on the ice. Saber-toothed cats are worse. They hunt in silence, their amber eyes locking onto you before you even know they're there. You've learned to avoid their territories, to travel in groups, to keep your spear ready. Dire wolves are bold, especially in winter, when hunger makes them reckless. You've faced them before, their snarls ringing in your ears as you thrust torches to drive them back. Even the smaller creatures, foxes, hares, ptarmigans, are vital, their meat and fur adding to your stores. Your clan is your strength. Alone you'd be dead in days, but together you endure. You share every kill, every scrap of hide, every spark of fire. The elders teach you which plants ease pain or heal wounds, like willow bark for fevers. The children gather kindling or sharpen sticks, learning the skills that will keep them alive. You've seen the bond of survival forge something deeper, a trust that holds fast when the world seems determined to break you. There are moments of joy, too. A successful hunt, a warm fire, the laughter of a child playing with a carved bone toy. These are the sparks that keep you going. But the fear never leaves. A storm can bury your camp in hours. A misstep can snap your ankle, leaving you useless to the clan. Disease is a silent killer, coughs that linger, wounds that fester. You've buried friends, their bodies wrapped in hides and laid in shallow graves marked with stones. Each loss hurts, but you can't linger. The tundra doesn't care about your grief. You sharpen your spear, check your fire, and move on. This is your life, hunter. The Ice Age has shaped you, your body, your mind, your soul. You're not just surviving. You're carving out a place in a world that doesn't yield easily. The cold, the hunger, the danger, they're part of you now, woven into every scar and every story you'll tell by the fire. And as you stand on this frozen plain, spear in hand, you know the hunt is calling. The mammoths are out there, and your clan is waiting. The hunt begins long before you grip your spear. It starts at dawn, when the air is sharp and the tundra glows pink under a rising sun. You're crouched with your clan around a fire, the smell of charred reindeer fat lingering as you plan. The elders speak first, their voices low, tracing patterns in the dirt with sticks. They've spotted a mammoth herd grazing 2 days' walk north, near a narrow ravine where the ground dips and the wind funnels through. It's a perfect spot for an ambush, if you can get there before the herd moves. Your stomach twists with hunger. The clan's meat stores are nearly gone, and the children's faces are gaunt. Failure isn't an option. You're part of a hunting party of 10, chosen for strength, speed, and nerve. There's Kale, the leader, with eyes like a hawk and scars crisscrossing his arms. Lyra, quick and silent, who can track a hare through a blizzard. And you, steady with a spear, trusted to strike true. The plan is simple but brutal. Drive a young mammoth away from the herd, trap it in the ravine, and bring it down. Simple doesn't mean easy. One misstep, and you're dead. Or worse, you return empty-handed to a starving clan. Preparation is everything. You check your tools with care, hands steady despite the cold. Your spear is a work of art, a flint point, chipped to razor sharpness, lashed to a sturdy ash shaft with sinew. You test the balance, swinging it lightly, feeling its weight. Others carry atlatls, wooden throwing sticks that give spears extra force. Lyra sharpens her flint knife, muttering about the best cuts of mammoth hide. Kale inspects the ropes, woven from braided grass, strong enough to hold a thrashing beast. You've also built traps in the ravine, shallow pits lined with sharpened stakes, covered with branches and snow. They won't kill a mammoth, but they'll slow it down, giving you a chance. The journey to the ravine takes 2 days, your boots crunching through frost, the wind clawing at your furs. You move in silence, eyes scanning for saber-toothed cats or wolves trailing your scent. At night, you huddle around a small fire, chewing strips of dried meat, whispering plans. Kale draws the ravine in the snow, marking where each hunter will stand. You feel the weight of it all. The clan's survival rests on your shoulders. Sleep is fitful, haunted by dreams of thundering hooves and blood on the ice. When you reach the ravine, the herd is there, grazing on brittle grass. The mammoths are massive, their shaggy coats swaying as they move, tusks sweeping the ground. You spot your target, a young bull, not fully grown but still twice your height, lagging at the herd's edge. Its size is deceptive. Even a juvenile can crush you without effort. Your heart pounds, but you force your breath to slow. Kale signals with a raised hand, and the hunt begins. You and Lyra circle wide, keeping low, using clumps of scrub for cover. The wind is in your favor, masking your scent. Your job is to spook the herd, driving the young bull toward the ravine. You clutch a bundle of dry grass tied to a stick, a torch unlit for now. Lyra nods, and you both creep closer, muscles tense. Then as one, you leap up, shouting and waving your arms. The herd startles, trumpeting in alarm, their heavy feet churning the snow. The young bull hesitates, confused, and that's your chance. You light the torch with a flint spark, thrusting it toward the herd. The flames flare, and the mammoths bolt, the ground shaking as they flee, straight toward the ravine. Kale and the others are waiting, hidden behind rocks. As the herd thunders past, the young bull veers, cut off by your shouts. It stumbles into the ravine, where the traps lie. You hear a bellow of pain as its front leg catches in a pit, stakes snapping under its weight. The bull thrashes, spraying snow, but it's slowed, vulnerable. Now comes the dangerous part. You sprint to join the others, spear ready, adrenaline burning through the cold. Kale leads the attack, hurling his spear with an otlotl. The flint tip buries deep in the mammoth's flank, blood staining its fur. The bull roars, swinging its trunk, and you dodge as it nearly clips your shoulder. Lyra darts in, her spear striking the beast's side. You take your shot, aiming for the soft spot behind the shoulder, where the heart lies. Your spear flies true, sinking deep, but the mammoth doesn't fall. It charges, maddened by pain, and you dive behind a boulder as its tusks gouge the air. Teamwork saves you. 2 hunters throw ropes, looping them around the bull's legs, pulling tight to hobble it. Others hurl stones, distracting the beast. You grab another spear, circling for a better angle. The mammoth's breaths are labored now, blood pooling in the snow. Kale shouts, and you all strike together, spears plunging, flint biting deep. The bull sways, lets out a final, shuddering bellow, and collapses, its weight shaking the earth. For a moment, you're frozen, panting, the air thick with the coppery smell of blood and the musk of mammoth. Then Kale claps your shoulder, grinning through the grime. You did it. The clan will eat. But the work isn't done. You kneel beside the carcass, offering a quiet prayer to the spirit of the mammoth, thanking it for its life. Then you draw your flint knife and begin the butchering, slicing through thick hide, carving slabs of meat. The hide will make cloaks, the bones tools, the tusks ornaments. Nothing goes to waste. As you work, you feel the bond with your clan, forged in danger and triumph. You've faced death together and come out stronger. The sun dips low, casting long shadows, and you load the meat onto hide sleds for the trek home. Your body aches, your hands are slick with blood, but there's pride in your chest. You're a hunter, and this is your art, etched in sweat, skill, and the will to survive. After the hunt, you trudge back to the cave, dragging sleds piled high with mammoth meat and hides. The air grows warmer as you near the entrance, a jagged maw in the cliff face, glowing faintly with firelight. The smell of smoke and roasting meat greets you, wrapping around you like a promise of rest. This cave is your home, your sanctuary in the ice age's frozen grip. Step inside, hunter, and feel the weight of the tundra lift for a moment. The walls are smooth, worn by time, speckled with soot and streaks of ochre. The fire in the center crackles, its warmth pushing back the chill, casting shadows that dance across the stone. Your clan is here, 20 souls, from babbling infants to stooped elders, laughing, working, living. Life in the cave is a rhythm, a balance of survival and something deeper. The floor is littered with furs and woven grass mats, soft underfoot but never quite clean. In one corner, a pile of bones and hides waits to be worked. In another, a child naps, clutching a carved mammoth figurine. The air hums with sounds, the scrape of flint, the thud of a mallet, the low hum of a lullaby. You drop your load of meat near the fire, where women are already slicing it into strips to dry. The elders nod approval, their hands busy stitching furs with bone needles. Everyone has a role, and every task binds the clan tighter. Toolmaking is your craft, your pride. You settle by the fire, a chunk of flint in hand, and begin napping. Each strike is precise, sending flakes flying, shaping the stone into a spear point. The process is meditative, the clink of stone against stone a steady beat. You've learned this from your father, who learned from his, how to read the flint's grain, to strike at just the right angle. Other tools take shape around you. Scrapers for cleaning hides, awls for piercing leather, burins for carving bone. Some hunters experiment, lashing flint blades to wooden handles to make axes. Bones from the mammoth become needles, fishhooks, even flutes. Nothing is wasted. Every piece of the kill finds a purpose. The cave walls are more than shelter, they're a canvas. You've seen Lyra, the clan's artist, mix ochre and charcoal with fat, her fingers smearing colors across the stone. She paints mammoths, their trunks raised, or reindeer leaping across imagined plains. Sometimes she traces her hand, leaving a red silhouette, a mark that says, "I was here." You've tried it yourself, dipping your palm in ochre, pressing it to the wall. The paintings aren't just art, they're stories, memories, prayers. They show the hunts, the dangers, the spirits that guide you. At night, by firelight, the figures seem to move, and you feel a connection to something bigger, something beyond the cold and hunger. Spirituality weaves through your days like smoke. The fire is sacred, a gift from the spirits that keeps death at bay. You've seen the clan gather around it, feeding it carefully, never letting it die. The elders lead rituals, chanting in low, guttural tones, offering scraps of meat to the flames. You join in, clapping rhythms on your thighs, feeling the heat on your face. The fire is your god, your protector, and you honor it with every spark. Other spirits dwell in the land, the mammoth's soul, the wind's voice, the stars that burn cold above. You carve amulets from bone, etching symbols of strength, wearing them to ward off harm. When a hunter dies, you bury them with tools and ochre, believing they'll need them in the next world. Rituals mark the seasons. In winter, when the nights are endless, you hold a feast, roasting mammoth fat until it sizzles, sharing stories of past hunts. The elders speak of the great mammoth, a spirit that gave its flesh to feed the first humans. You listen wide-eyed, as they describe a time before the ice, when the world was green. These stories aren't just tales, they're lessons, teaching you to respect the land, to hunt with gratitude. Another night, you dance, mimicking the stomp of mammoths, your shadows leaping on the walls. The children giggle, but you feel the power in it, a way to call the herds closer. Life isn't all work and worship. There's joy in the small things, a shared laugh when kale trips over a hide, the warmth of a fur blanket, the taste of marrow sucked from a bone. You play games, tossing pebbles into circles scratched in the dirt, or teach the young ones to aim with a sling. Love blooms, too, quiet glances between hunters, partnerships sealed with woven grass rings. You've seen the pain of loss, but also the hope of new life, when a baby's cry echoes in the cave. These moments, fleeting as they are, make the struggle worthwhile. The cave is your world, but it's not isolated. You trade with other clans, meeting at river bends to exchange flint, furs, or rare shells from distant seas. These gatherings are tense but vital, a chance to share news, tools, even mates. You've heard tales of clans far off, living where the ice thins and strange beasts roam. It reminds you that you're part of something larger, a web of humans clinging to life across the frozen earth. As you sit by the fire, shaping a spear point, you feel the weight of your existence. This life is hard, but it's yours. The cave, the tools, the paintings, the rituals, they're not just survival. They're a testament to your clan's resilience, your creativity, your refusal to be crushed by the ice. You glance at the painted mammoth on the wall, its eyes seeming to meet yours. It's a reminder, you're not just a hunter. You're a keeper of stories, a shaper of the future, leaving marks that will echo long after the ice is gone. You sit by the fire, its glow warming your face, a finished spear point in your hand. The cave is quiet now, save for the soft breathing of your clan and the drip of water on stone. You've hunted, crafted, painted, and prayed, each act a thread in the tapestry of your life. But your story doesn't end here, hunter. You and your clan are laying the foundations of humanity itself, forging a legacy that will ripple through time, long after the ice melts and the mammoths fade. Your tools are the first spark. The flint spear points, scrapers, and alls you nap with such care are more than objects, they're ideas. You've learned to shape the world, to turn stone and bone into extensions of your will. Each blade you craft is a lesson passed down, refined by trial and error. These tools will evolve from flint to bronze, iron, and steel, but their origin lies here, in your calloused hands. You've built shelters, sewn clothing, carved fishhooks, small innovations that let humans thrive where others perish. Your ingenuity is a gift to the future, the seed of cities, machines, and marvels yet to come. The paintings on your cave walls are another legacy. Those ochre mammoths, leaping reindeer, and handprints aren't just decoration. They're humanity's first stories, told in color and shadow. You've captured the world as you see it, giving form to fear, hope, and wonder. These images will inspire others, long after your clan is gone. Far in the future, people will stand in caves like yours, marveling at your art, piecing together your life. Your paintings will birth myths, rituals, and eventually written words, linking you to every poet, painter, and dreamer who follows. Your rituals, too, are a cornerstone. The chants around the fire, the offerings to the mammoth spirit, the amulets you wear, they're the roots of belief. You've given meaning to a chaotic world, weaving a thread of purpose through the cold and danger. These early rites will grow into temples, philosophies, and faiths, shaping how humans seek answers to life's mysteries. Your reverence for fire, for the land, for the animals you hunt, will echo in cultures that honor nature, in stories of gods and spirits born from the same awe you feel. Your clan's unity is perhaps your greatest gift. You've learned that survival demands trust, cooperation, and sacrifice. The way you share meat, teach children, and mourn the lost will shape human societies. Your small band, bound by firelight and shared struggle, is the blueprint for tribes, villages, and nations. The trade you conduct with other clans, exchanging flint and shells, hints at markets and alliances to come. Even your dances and games, moments of joy snatched from hardship, will live on in festivals and traditions. You'll never see the world your work creates. The ice will retreat, the tundra will bloom, and new peoples will rise, carrying your tools, stories, and spirit. They'll build boats, plant crops, raise temples, all because you dared to hunt mammoths, to paint dreams, to keep the fire burning. Your scars, your laughter, your quiet prayers, they're the heartbeat of humanity's dawn. As you set the spear point down, you feel a quiet pride. You're not just a hunter, you're a maker of the future. Your legacy is etched in stone, painted in ochre, whispered in the flames. Rest now, knowing your story will endure, carried forward by countless hands, across countless fires, into a world you helped create. You've walked the frozen tundra, hunter, felt the sting of ice age winds, and faced the thundering might of mammoths. You've carved tools from flint, clocked spears with deadly precision, and painted stories on cave walls that echo through time. Through hunger, cold, and danger, you and your clan showed a resilience that burns brighter than any fire. Your life, raw, wild, and unyielding, was the dawn of humanity, laying the stones for our world with every hunt, every ritual, every stroke of ochre. You were no mere survivor. You were a creator, a dreamer, a spark in the dark. Now, as the fire in your cave flickers, casting warm shadows on the stone, let the weight of the hunt slip away. Picture the flames dancing, their soft crackle a lullaby. Your clan sleeps soundly, wrapped in furs, safe because of your strength. The tundra is quiet, the stars above endless. Close your eyes, feel the warmth, and let the rhythm of this ancient world carry you. You've earned this rest. Drift into sleep, cradled by the glow of the fire, knowing your legacy lives on in every human heart. Good night, hunter.